Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Hello again, everybody. It is the April 16th edition of Talking Memphis Wrestling. We'll talk a lot of stuff, including KFIN Radio. Crazy Gail Brooks watching. Hey, Brad Collins, you're in the house. Ronnie Crowder in the house. Gail is talking all over the place, as is Andrew Calvin Jr. We have Pat Trammell here with us today, and Randy West watching today. Pat, if you don't mind, I'm going to do something a little different right now, right here, as we open up Talking Memphis Wrestling. That is, man, we are packed and loaded and excitement, and we're ready to go. Hey, Frank Seaton. Hey, Jeremy. Again, I'll say hi to Randy West and PJ, and I'm going to do something a little different now, because usually I go last if I do a first take at all. But now I am going first. A little ripoff of Jonesboro Radio, because they have a segment on the morning show. They do morning birthdays at 7:15 in the morning. And the guy that does that is my old pal, Brandon Baxter. We have a graphic and we have some pictures, and we actually have a graphic with Brandon's name on it. It's Double B's birthday coming up on Sunday, and I'm fired up. I'm excited as Brandon Baxter, my man, turns 47 years old. Brandon turns 47. Can you believe it? Man, that makes me feel old. As you see the graphic there, Brandon Baxter, born on April the 21st, 1977. This Sunday, he will turn 47 years old. Want to tell you, the first time I met Brandon Baxter was at 1960 Union Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee, at the NBC affiliate. Now, that current picture you just saw, the ball-headed version, Adam, the great producer that he is, will have a current picture of Brandon. He'll do that again, throw that up there. Brandon Baxter, believe it or not, folks, as that you see him there, he is celebrating and celebrated yesterday 21 years. 21 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. Since he's done morning radio in Jonesboro, Arkansas. His career after wrestling, his career after Power Pro, and then before that, the USWA. He's big shot. He's the program director, a director of operations. That's his career now, and he's done a great job. And yesterday, he celebrated his 22nd, 23 years after Power Pro ended. So certainly I want to say happy birthday to you, to him, Brandon Baxter. 1995, it was June, is when I first hired Brandon to be a wrestling manager. And Pat Trammell, I know you're watching. Brandon Baxter, you saw the shot, what he looks like currently. He didn't look like that then. Skinny, colorful pants, long blonde hair. That interview with that microphone, Randy West, that you sent to me and I'm using right now in my hand, that was Brandon Baxter doing that in 1995. Boys, change is change. So glad that Brandon Baxter, along with Randy West, old friends, old friends of mine, just like Pat Trammell is one of my new friends. About 4 years worth of a relationship, and I think it's almost I talk to Pat more than I talk to Brandon, more than I talk physically to Randy West. I certainly hear from Randy multiple times a day, so he's got you beat on texting. But Pat Trammell, that was my first take. What do you got for us?
Well, my first take is Brandon and I have a very similar hairstyle now, but I never had the blonde locks like he had. I envy him for that. Although I didn't have, never had that much, I never had that much beautiful hair to lose. But it's a great day. I told you earlier, this is the week that I'm running like the territory days. Got up at 5:30 this morning, went to Kennesaw, Georgia today, came home to do the show, getting up at 5 in the morning, going to Franklin, Kentucky, which I'm sure you've run a spot show from here to there. It's great to see everybody. I think Michael is not going to be with us tonight. He's up in Louisville, where he takes himself this time of year for the Kentucky Derby, and it's just great to see everybody. Got all our old friends on: Frank, Gail, Ronnie, Brad, PJ, uh, Randy West, all our pals on. Looking forward. Hometown, Franklin, Kentucky. That's a great little town. I'm going to see a business up there, Ronnie.
Ronnie Crowder batting down the town because Pat Trammell will be there, I believe, tomorrow. Am I right on that?
I will be there. It's the first exit into. Hey, Jeremy, it's the first exit into Kentucky.
Man, you are warned, Ronnie Crowder. You are warned. Pat will be pulling in his limousine, and he will be rocking and rolling off of 65 into that town, your town.
2014 limousine.
Yes, sir.
Owensboro. That's a good spot show town right there. So, hey, Carlton. All right, what we got today, boss?
Folks, do you want to know what we're going to see today, what we're going to do today? Because this is a exciting show that's packed. But since Michael's not here, I can pretty much guarantee you, and Chris is not here either. It's just me and Pat today, and I like it when we're doing that. Adam Dunn won't be on screen, but he's pushing all the buttons and doing that just as good as he can do it. I will tell you what we are going to do a running thread we did last week. We will continue to do it, and there is a caption for Lance Russell, Mr. Producer Adam, and I want you to put that up there. And so we will. A thread of this show will be going back to Jerry Lawler's podcast, Dinner with the King, and it is entitled Thank You, Lance. So much great information about Lance Russell, the greatest of all times, no doubt about it, the great Lance Russell. And I promise you today, you will love the Dinner with the King podcast. Of course, that will be great. We also will examine a great historic card that Pat will read us from 1977 in Louisville, Kentucky. We have pictures of the day. If we have time, we will have other stuff, and it's packed as I can tell you. But we have another card from 1980, my senior year, and this is from my hometown. We just have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pictures of the day. We also have a question of the day. So listen up, Pat Trammell. The simple question is, what did the glory days of Memphis wrestling have that the territory wrestling, or that the modern wrestling does not? Let me read that question again. What did the glory days of Memphis wrestling have that modern wrestling does not have? Also, we will discuss lost video. I know the memories, but I don't have video to back it up. And we will discuss these memories and moments from Memphis wrestling history. So, man, just some dynamite stuff. So, what do you think of the lineups that we have for us today, Mr. Trammell?
I think we've got an awful lot of fun and interesting stuff to dig in through the years and through the territories, and I'm excited to get started.
We're going to start with the card, and I'll let the cat out of the bag right before we read this card. Want to talk about somebody I don't know if we've ever talked about on this show. We have a graphic to back it up, and we have pictures to back it up. And I think this will be interesting, and we should get some great feedback from our audience on this as we talk about the eighth wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant will be a feature here today on Talking Memphis Wrestling. We'll go back and look how big of Pat. Your microphone's hot. How about this picture of Andre?
That is Andre in his prime. I think a whole lot of people remember the Andre from WrestleMania 3 when he was, much older, much larger, much slower. But there's video out there that I've seen once of Andre doing a full-on drop kick, and he was as athletic as you could ever imagine in when the era that this was taken. True,
Andre was,
tr-
go ahead.
truly a wonder of the world.
Andre the Giant was born on May the 19th, 1946. He passed away on January the 28th, 1993, at a very young 46 years old. And how about Andre the Giant? For sure, getting in a taxi cab would be, if you were a taxi driver or an Uber driver, would that intimidate you, Mr. Trammell?
Well, cars are a lot smaller now than they used to be. You don't have four door Fords and Chevrolets and Lincolns like you used to. I imagine it would be imagine it'd be difficult now. So
No doubt about it. Andre the Giant. And I got some interesting information to talk about that. And the first thing I'm going to do is we keep that picture of Andre the Giant up there. I wanted to tell you about Andre the Giant's first time he came to Memphis at the Mid South Coliseum. Andre the Giant came to Memphis on September the 30th, 1974. He was in the main event of a card that drew almost, let's see, almost um, 10,500 people in 1974 for his debut. Andre the Giant against Bobby Fulton and Charlie Main. That was in 1974, September the 30th. Right now, we are going to a card. If you go ahead and put that card up there, Adam, from Louisville, Kentucky, at the Louisville Gardens on April the 5th, 1977. And here's Pat Trammell. Take your time, Pat. Start from the bottom of the card that's on the screen right now and go up to the main event.
I will, and there's really no bottom to this card. This is a great card from the opening match to the main event, and has a very special place in Memphis wrestling history. First match: Pork Chop Cash and Dutch Mantell versus Tommy Gilbert and Ricky Gibson. A great tag team match. The second match on the card: Gorgeous George Jr. versus Plowboy Frazier. Um, an NWA Southern title match: Rocky Johnson versus David Schultz, and I bet there was plenty of blood and guts in that one. And then the Southern tag titles were on the line with one of the more underrated tag teams in Memphis wrestling history. Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey versus Rock Hunter as manager versus Bill Dundee and Tommy Rich. And a special challenge: A match long known in Memphis wrestling lore. Jerry Lawler versus Andre the Giant.
WF, the Inside Wrestling and Bill Apter magazines, and all that kind of stuff. It caused hell this Tuesday night at the Louisville Gardens on April the 5th, 1977. I want to say hello to Michael Butler, say hello to Ronnie again, and Bo James is in the house. And this is a very interesting story, Pat, that you're going to tell.
Okay, well, I did not know I was going to be put on the spot. I'm afraid I might get in trouble with the ghost of Vince Sr. Apparently, during the match, Andre was disqualified with a 10 count out, and Bill Apter put a photo on the cover of his magazine and said Andre had gotten beaten by Lawler. Lawler went over.
What he said, this is the midget that beat Andre the Giant. That's what the article was.
Okay, that's what it said, and I understand that Jerry Jarrett took not a little bit of heat from Vince Sr. at the next NWA meeting because nobody beat Andre and it never got out. Is that correct, Randy?
That's right. Heck, he didn't get beat up there. You know, he was protected. He was an attraction, and obviously the whole heat came from Bill Apter because he printed that, and Vince McMahon really thought that Andre the Giant lost to Lawler 1, 2, 3. There was a pinfall, and it wasn't. Andre the Giant was just disqualified. It was just a finish that didn't hurt Andre at all. Thomas Lemon is in the house. Tanner is in the house. Man, we're rocking and rolling.
Randy, was this part of the Quest for the Gold series that they were running with Lawler? There we go. There we go.
Keep that up there for a minute, Pat. What a producer my ass has, no doubt.
How about that? How about that?
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's a perfect shot right there. Perfect
and Frank,
shot.
It reminds me, he's right that when Vince says who was the midget that beat Andre, it was this, and Terry Funk spoke up and said it was this man right here, Jerry Lawler. There it is in front of everybody.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry. Bo, who beat Andre at East Tennessee?
Bo just won't let it go. Bo, from now on, when you start freaking correcting me, will you send me a text message and don't do it on the freaking air, for Christ's sake? Jesus Christ. Go ahead.
Nothing. I just, Andre was such a attraction. I remember he came to Birmingham probably 3 or 4 times, and in my youth, if that many, and they always built him up and put him over. And the world was different then. You didn't see NBA players that were 7 feet tall all the time. You didn't, you just didn't have enough TV. We had 3 channels, and you just couldn't see everything everywhere. So he was certainly a huge attraction and something of an oddity. And I think his athleticism. Added all that.
Just a great talent, just a fantastic talent.
And apparently a very good guy too. Did you spend any time with Andre, Randy?
Yes, I picked him up at the Memphis airport. There he is there when Eddie Gilbert was in New York for the WWF. That's Andre the Giant and Eddie Gilbert, and that's another dynamic find by Adam Dunn. Man, we missed Adam yesterday on the Power Hour, but he is back and he's working overtime and he's getting great stuff. The last time Andre the Giant was in Memphis was March the 21st, 1983. It was on a Sunday, and it just drew 6,200 people for Pork Chop Cash and Mad Dog and Beautiful Bobby Eaton against Stagger Lee, who was Coco Ware, Jerry the King Lawler, and Andre the Giant. That was March the 21st, 1983, at the Mid-South Coliseum on a Sunday night in Memphis, Tennessee. How about those apples?
I'm curious about that. Why would they run a Sunday night?
Because there must have been, this would have been in March. I would imagine a Memphis State basketball game at the
Okay.
Mid-South Coliseum.
Now, is that Miss Christine?
Do I, Pat?
Was that Miss Christine with Andre?
Let's see that again. I wasn't looking at the screen. Yes, it is.
Okay. 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 It's interesting. Go ahead, Randy.
The young fans of today sees these flip-flops and crazy stuff, and I don't care how many Dave Meltzer 7-star matches they've seen. They damn sure has never seen Andre the Giant live. And that was something. I didn't, 2 stories about that. I picked him up at the airport and brought him. One time, when he appeared in that 1974 show, Lance Russell went and picked him up at the airport. He leaned back on Lance's seat in his brand new van and broke the seat. He broke Lance Russell's seat, Pat Trammell.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
One of the craziest things about that, some other, I think we'll go ahead and go to the picture section. One of the old timers from the 70s want to show you a picture of that. It's Al Green, big mean Al Green, smoking a cigarette. What do you think about that?
Hey, Ahmad, the Greens were some of in my youth. The Greens were like the ultimate heels because they reminded me of kind of slick back hair, guys you would see in the American Legion or the VFW, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer and shooting pool, and a fight could break out at any point in time. That's what I thought of the Greens.
Adam says, and I think he's 100% right. Adam says Al Green looks like an old Western bad guy on the television. He does, right?
He absolutely does. He absolutely does.
Alexander asked about Al Green. Did he smoke a cigarette in the ring before the Sandman? I don't think so. I have another picture with Al Green in it, and this was a great team. This is Phil Hickerson, who was a great tag team partner later on with Dennis Condrey. Phil's just a great, great talent. This is Al Green on the left, manager Sam Bass, Jerry Lawler's first manager, and of course, Phil Hickerson. Great, great picture.
That is a great picture. I'd love to have a copy of that. Where was it, Randy?
I am going to see. I'm not 100% sure. It might be the women's building in Nashville by the lights. I'm thinking. I'm sure. So whether he knows the answer or not, Bo will make it up. I guarantee you. Frank Stevens says Hickerson was so underrated, and he was, as Ronnie says about Al, was a tough guy. He was a tough guy too. He is just a fantastic, fantastic talent, and there is no doubt about it. I want another thing, and I want to see who gets this answer. And if you know, Pat, let's let our audience figure it out. the baseball picture. If you could, go ahead and show the baseball picture, folks. This is a pretty easy one. Look at the face. Who is this? Thank you, Alexander. As Frank Seaton is the one that gets it right, that says the Macho Man Randy Savage. Did you know that answer, Mr. Trammell?
I did not know that answer. I kept looking and I kept looking, and he looked a tad familiar and a tad familiar. But boy, I tell you what, he could have been a white meat babyface, man. Look at that guy. That's not the guy we knew.
Who invented the term white meat babyface? I
I
don't
have
know.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I actually don't like it, but I use it sometimes.
You use it a lot, and since I don't know really what it is, I've never used it. I think in a podcast that's I heard one time Steve Austin. Now, obviously, the money he's drawing, if he wants to call it a white meat,
I think I've heard that. Yeah,
he
yeah.
certainly can, without a doubt, without hurting my feelings. But a baby face is a baby face, and baby face could look all uh, kinds of shapes and forms and that sort of thing. All right, we are going to a Lance Russell conversation right now, the greatest wrestling announcer that there was ever made in the history of mankind. There's no doubt about it. Lance Russell, born on March the 18th, 1926. He passed away October the 3rd, 2017 at 91 years old. And Pat just discussed these different pictures, and this is one of the classics and one of my favorites. As they had a banner set up for a meet and greet, and Lance's reaction seeing himself. What do you think about that picture?
I love that. I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's great.
This is one of
That's
my
great.
favorites of all times. When Lawler opened up Jerry Lawler's Hall of Fame Bar and Grill on Bill Street in Memphis, Tennessee, historic Bill Street, they had an artist do this artwork of Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. Now, this on the stage looks like they're right there. It's so realistic. So Lance was there along with Shane, as a med says, yellow again, everybody, for sure. How about this picture, my man? Pat said, isn't it so realistic? And Lance is just sitting on the stage. He looks like he's sitting on the daggum stage of the Letterman show.
It really does. It really does. That's an iconic picture right there. I wish Adam, if you'd send me that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I don't know for sure if Adam has it, but I do.
Oh, okay. Well, if you could send it to me, I thought
Adam might.
Adam.
He could find it anyway. How about this picture? This is on the back car. They're racing in Memphis, Tennessee. In last place, Phil Hickerson. You see Phil there. Adam, I want you to the picture of Sam or Al, Sam, and Phil. So look at Phil in that picture right now on this screen right now. You see what it looks like now in his wrestling tights. Let's switch over to that picture of Sam Bass, Big Al Green, and Big Phil Hickerson, who called himself for a long time the King of Jackson, Tennessee. Is that original picture we showed of the race? Your thoughts on that, Mr. Trammell?
Look. I didn't know Phil was that. How old was Phil on this picture right here? That must have been in the mid 70s.
I think that might have been in the early 70s.
Early
He
70s.
started probably 73, maybe 74.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Adam would guess that he's in his 20s there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great picture. Great picture. And then as we're talking about Lance Russell, and I don't know if we got all the pictures, if we hadn't got if we have showed all the pictures that we have of Lance, I think, I'm not sure if we showed everything we got. If we showed them all, just put me some of Lance back on there. I want you to read, if you can see this, as many of these famous and do inflection in your voice like Lance would have done it. Read these sayings, the original sayings from Lance Russell.
My goodness, I couldn't do it justice. Come on, Tojo, don't be starting that stuff again. Will you show some class? Oh, come on, Hart. I love that. Son of a gun. By golly, we got a good one here. Eddie, can we get some help out of it? Where did this come from, Randy? That's a T-shirt, man. I'm getting sick and tired of you coming out here every week. Get these guys out of here, will you? What is a Sam Hill? All right, don't get into that stuff. You got something to say to me, you better say it to me. I love that. And then the iconic yellow again, everybody.
His son Shane and Rusty had that together at Lance's funeral in Memphis, at Memphis Funeral Home, Celebration of Life. They had that on the podium for everybody to see, and I had to take a picture of that for sure. Man, we have a lot of folks making comments. We have a great number of viewers today. Alexander said, why that territory don't have ringside barriers like the WWF? I'll tell you exactly why, Alexander, and it makes common sense. But that picture of Al Green up there, the single shot of Al Green, I'll tell you exactly why we didn't freaking need barriers to keep the freaking people up there. Do you think any of the teenagers, any of the truck drivers, do you think anybody would have got in the ring and have to fight somebody that looked like this? What in the Sam Hill are you even talking about, Alexander? Later on, they ended up once Al Green and Phil Hickerson and the Mongolian Stomper quit wrestling in Memphis. They put up ropes that you could just raise it up and walk under it. Heck, in Louisville, Kentucky, they had policemen with riot gear. Honest to God truth, with riot gear for sure. I mean, is that the best comeback to a comment you've ever heard me do in your life when they asked why they weren't barriers?
Well, it was true because I had as a 7-year-old boy, and Al and Don Green came walking down the aisle at the Boutwell Auditorium. I got behind my brother. I remember that. All 140 pounds of him.
Brian, I've been around a long time. Tell me when Lance turned heel, because I don't think that's correct information.
I don't remember that.
Thomas talking about Al Green and Phil Hickerson. Joe called them the Sherman Tanks. Do you remember that, Pat?
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Lance is I've got it. When we get into our discussion today, Lance is a big part of my answer. So.
Just classic stuff. Man, what time is it, Pat?
7:34. 7:34.
So we've talked about 34 minutes. Is that the most we've ever crammed into 34 minutes ever?
I believe it is, and I believe it's as many comments as been crammed in one too, which is great.
Fantastic. This is a lot of fun. One series we had, it was a thread running through the show, and our microphones will be open from this, and we have a caption Adam to do the description of it when we get it going. This is from 2019. This was the Dinner with the King Jerry Lawler podcast. Thank you for Jerry Lawler doing the show called Thank You, Lance. We had part one last week. I don't know if we'll be able to get through this, and we'll come in and out of this, and certainly fun memories. Or did you like that segment last week when we listened to Dinner with the King? Because I think we will learn stuff we didn't know here.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This is history that needs to be. Everybody needs to hear.
Courtesy of Dinner with the King, talking about the great Lance Russell with Randy Host and Pat Trout.
Lance and also yourself. You guys have had a lot of segments together. There's this one video, and I'm sure we're gonna, I'm gonna add some clips of these, audio of these clips throughout the show. But there's one of you pranking a doctor.
Oh my goodness! That was not supposed to get out anywhere. That's one of the things that escaped and will live forever on YouTube. But yeah, Lance was, Lance was just a great guy and was always enjoyed, joking around with the wrestlers and that sort of thing. But yeah, there's one from our old doctor friend in Evansville, Indiana. We used to have a doctor on hand to do a physical for all the wrestlers right before the matches, and this poor old guy, he was way past his prime, and I don't even know if he could see the numbers on the blood pressure thing or not. But yeah, we would kind of pull some pranks on him almost on a weekly basis. But he was a good-hearted guy, and Lance helped us out with one. And are you gonna play the soundtrack of that one?
Yeah, and thank God I don't show video because people don't need to see you pulling your pants down.
Yeah, I basically asked the doctor to perform what was it? One of those I don't know where
check for hemorrhoids.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was a funny scene.
And a lot of the backdrops in a lot of these guys have hemorrhoids, and no, really, I've heard that. Yeah, it's a tough way, and I assume. Probably.
The doc sticks his finger up our ass and checks us for hemorrhoids.
Come on,
before the matches.
No. I don't worry about the hemorrhoids. I don't worry about
really? No, I'm not kidding you.
Hey,
just
come on, Jerry.
Come on, Jerry.
Family show. We're gonna have to cut it. Yeah, that's all.
Get out of here.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
That's right.
Thank you. Pleasure, and thank you very much.
Hey, come on, Jerry. That's enough. We're not gonna have it.
But anyway, the great thing about Lance was the fact that what you saw on TV, you hear the old expression, what you see is what you get. Well, what you saw on TV was the real Lance Russell. And I think that's what made him so successful. And I tried to, once I got into broadcasting in the WWE, I tried to emulate Lance in that sense. I always, when I watched or listened to Lance Russell and Dave Brown, it reminded me of just not two guys that are on TV. It reminded me of two guys that were just like two best friends sitting on a sofa watching a wrestling show and talking to each other. Yeah. And that always, that is something that I think the fans out there watching always related to. They felt like Lance Russell was a friend of the family, or a part of the family that came into their house every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock and stayed for an hour and a half and visited with them. And that's what was so special about Lance. And once I got, when JR and I were together, I always kind of kept that in the back of my mind. I didn't ever want to, I didn't want to try to necessarily be out of character. I just wanted to, it was like JR and I were sitting there watching a wrestling show and talking to each other. It wasn't like that we were performing for the audience. And that was the same way with Lance. He was never, he even though the audience was his, primary focus, it wasn't that Lance was going out of his way to perform for the audience. He was just being himself and just such a genuine guy. And I think that was one of the reasons he and Dave Brown both had so much credibility. It's hard to talk about use the word credibility with a wrestling show. Yeah. But Lance and Dave were able, through their personalities and the way they talked and the way they did a broadcast, to make everything that the people were watching believable. I mean, it was just, we were always kind of conscious of keeping both Lance and especially Dave, because Dave Brown was the top weatherman his entire career from the day he started doing, he was a top meteorologist and the top weatherman on every station that he worked at, primarily Channel 5, where we had our wrestling show, and before that, Channel 13, where we had our wrestling show. But Dave was the top weatherman, so we had to go, we had to be extra careful to preserve Dave's credibility, because you didn't want people to say, oh, the weather guy, he's the same guy that does that crazy wrestling, who's going to believe what he says? So, and Lance and Dave were both the same way. That's why we didn't really involve Lance or Dave so much in the action as sometimes you would see, things happen with the announcers and things in the WWE. But if that did ever occur, it was a very special deal, a rare event. And it just, whenever Lance got touched by a wrestler, or whenever when he got emotional about something, people knew, hey, this is something out of the ordinary. This is something special. One time, I think Jimmy Hart busted a 5-pound bag of flour in the studio and it went all over Lance. And this was almost something people had never seen before. And it had such a huge impact because it involved Lance.
Do you know how much is in this bag right here?
I know how
it's
much
enough to cover a whole bunch of. It's a lot of flour in here. It's enough to cover a lot of.
Will you quit crying about it? If they get a hold of it and they use it, I have an idea who they may want to use it.
That's right. Oh, that's good. See, you want to make fun of me because you want to see them dumping on me, don't you, Russell?
All I can tell you.
How do you like it on you? You look great.
All right, Hart. Get out of here. All right, Hart, you're out of here. You're out of here. You are suspended. You better believe I can. I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to put up with you around here anymore. Hart, you're suspended. Get out of here. Liv, will you get that stupid fool out of here?
It also had a huge impact because we got in big trouble with the TV station. We didn't realize at the time that when those bags of flour broke, all of that flour dust was in the air, and the cooling fans on the big cameras, the TV cameras back then, sucked that flour right into the cameras, and it almost shut all the cameras down. I mean, they had to do a major repair and clean job on the cameras, and we were told by the general manager, do not bust any more bags of flour in the wrestling show.
Okay,
so, but I remember one time Dream Machine grabbed Lance, and one time, one of my favorites was when Tojo.
Pause that for us.
Out on the set, and Lance cut a promo to Tojo Yamamoto saying,
so we're going to go ahead and get out of that right then and come back with me and Pat. So your thoughts right now, Pat, and we'll get back to more of that. That's because we have about an hour and 10 minutes left in the program. Your comments on everything. We just packed a lot of that in that segment. There's so much to talk about. Go ahead. Wake up.
Well, I'm awake. I'm curious as to when Lawler was first talking. I disagree with him, but I'm not exactly sure why. But somehow he went off this thing. He talked about Lance, credibility and keeping it. Keeping the wrestling credible with the audience, and it was absolutely credible, and he was a part of that. There was, it was absolutely, our pal Dave, it's real to me, damn it. It was real to everybody on Saturday morning, and part of that was because of Lance. And I've gone through, I think we've talked before, and I've shared, kind of my background with everybody, and I had the opportunity to watch a whole lot of different wrestling shows in my youth, particularly in Montgomery, Alabama, and Mobile, Alabama, and Atlanta, and Chattanooga because of our cable TV situation. Lance was 100% different from everybody else. As much as I liked Gordon Soley, as much as I liked Sterling Brewer, as much as I liked the other guys. Like much as I like Bob Cottle, who I like a lot. Uh, Lance was the moral compass of Memphis wrestling, and that's a unique position. Lance was the voice of reason, and Lance set the tone for who was a good guy and who wasn't a good guy, what was appropriate and what wasn't. And when a good guy strayed, he would call him out on it. And he and Lawler working that way because Lawler being so over, but still something of a heel that would cross the line back and forth and be inappropriate, and Lance wouldn't let him get away with it. That relationship was a big part of what wrestling was in Memphis, in my opinion.
Pat Trammell was talking, and he is one of the original co-hosts of this show. I'm Randy Hills, Yellow again, everybody, as we're coming up on about 47 minutes in the show, and we will go back in a few minutes to the dinner with the king. I think this is fascinating, hearing these stories right within days, or could have been a week after Lance passed away. Are you fascinated by this, and have you ever heard this?
I've heard bits and pieces of it. I have not heard what we've heard the past couple of weeks.
We'll be back to that video in a few minutes, depending on how much activity we can get. And Pat, you got to be on the ball and help me with some of these that I don't have. And Adam, I want you to go ahead and put the question of the day up there. It's in the caption section. It says, what did the glory days of Memphis wrestling have that is missing now in modern wrestling? Pat, go ahead, because you do such an eloquent job in speaking. If you would, go ahead. Our question of the day is what?
What do the glory days of Memphis wrestling have? Can't see the rest of it.
That is missing in modern wrestling.
In modern wrestling. Several things, I think. One, you had a hometown, homegrown babyface that the entire city was behind, mostly, and followed for over 2 decades. I think that's important. I've never seen civic pride in another wrestler in any other territory like that, as Lawler was.
Now let's keep up with what our members of Team Hale say. PJ says loyal fans. Absolutely. I mean, they went to their grave as hating Al Green. They went to their grave hating the interns and Dr. Ken Ramey. This is funny. Frank Seaton, this is not the funny one, but this is true. Blood, more managers, hair matches, and strap matches. And Randy West says Randy Hills is missing.
Oh, Laura H is missing. That's right. That's right.
This is my list, and this is so interesting. Keep it up, Team Hills, and certainly original member of Team Hills that went to bat for me on a creative idea or two that I had. And one of the reasons that I'm here, I say it with Eddie, but if it's true, if it wasn't for Jerry Lawler, Eddie Marlin, and Randy Hills, and Lance Russell, there'd be no Randy Hills in the wrestling business. Eddie Marlin, Randy West, Lance Russell, and Jerry Lawler. There is no doubt about that. This is my list of things that we had in the glory days of Memphis wrestling, modern wrestling didn't have. I think yours were great, Pat. Yours were great. From a business standpoint, this is what I said. First of all, what we had kayfabe. The business was protected. You kind of talked about that several times during this show without directly saying that. The people believed the people believe. Then the death of the territories. That's where people got good. That's where people learned how to wrestle, learned how to work, learned in a smaller territory like Jerry Lawler, whether it was up in Bo James part of the country or whether in Knoxville or whether it was in Alabama. That's where everybody could learn and get experience in front of maybe some places 30, 40, 50 people. And again, that's where they learn. There wasn't any wrestling schools back then. Half the world wasn't smarting up. I mean, very, there's people that work for the wrestling company that wasn't smart, smarting up. The Dave Meltzers of the world, if he would have tried this crap in the 60s instead of the 80s, somebody would have had him killed. And
He may not be with us anymore.
I'm not lying, am I, Pat?
I could very well see that happening. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Death of protecting the business. We just quit doing it. This show is the toothpaste out of the tube. So we talk this stuff for sure. Kayfabe going away. The death of the territories. That's where people learn. And not only did they learn there, if somebody got stale in Tennessee, you sent them to Georgia. If somebody got stale in Texas, they'd send them to Tennessee. Heck, Tennessee was two different territories. Nick Gillis is in and Jerry Jarrett's in. Monday night was Memphis and Birmingham. So if somebody was stale, Bill Dundee, stale in Memphis, say they're about wanted to switch him a little bit, but wanted him to be more fresh into people's eyes from what he's done in the past, they sent him to Birmingham on Monday. Bill thought he was being punished because the Birmingham payoffs in those days in '75 was nothing, Pat, like the Memphis payoffs.
Oh,
so
I'm sure.
I think the death of the territories, I'm going to add one. This is your favorite line. Personal issues draw money. Folks, I'm telling you right now, we've beat this to death, Pat and I, over the last couple of weeks. Personal issues draw money. What's a current example of that? They have got right. Anybody that thinks that the Cody Rhodes finishing his story wasn't a personal issue, it touched people, Pat, in the 70s that were Dusty Rhodes fans that remember that match in '77 in Madison Square Garden with Dusty and Superstar Billy Graham, where Dusty got the belt in his hand, but it was a count out, and they took the belt away from it. That's the first time Dusty Rhodes was ever a victim of the Dusty finish, basically. It's what happened on that thing. Absolutely. I think one thing we miss is Lance Russell. Trustworthy announcer with credibility who the audience see as their friend. Lance Russell came in my living room every Saturday. Came in everybody in the Channel 5 or Channel 13 viewing area, came into our living room every single Saturday, back when most people just had one television. Most people just had one TV. Lance Russell was our friend. What's the closest thing in modern wrestling, going back to the Attitude Era of announcers? Would you think JR was great? He was enthusiastic. The fans liked him. Do you think he had the Lance Russell type of likability or relatability, Pat? Your opinion?
No, I don't, and I don't mean anything negative for Jr. Okay, I think he's great at what he did, but I don't think he had the trust that Lance had, and it's very difficult for me to to express this, but I'll use it, and maybe Dave Brown deserves more credit than he gets.
Oh, he's
Because
great. He
well,
is
no,
unbelievable.
well, what I was thinking about Lance and how people saw him in Memphis wrestling is, and every city has this, and Dave Brown is this, and was this in Memphis, and every city has this. You have a local weatherman which has an outsized amount of respect from everybody. James Spann, who recently retired, James Spann was that guy in Birmingham for 35 years. And people, when there was hurricanes and when there was snowstorms, they turned to James Spann, and he was trusted is not the word. Um, he was somebody that you would, you know, you turn to in times of trouble to tell you what to do. And that's different from an announcer. And Lance and Dave, but Lance particularly, was that for Memphis wrestling fans. He was the voice of reason. He was the voice of comfort. He was the voice of what was appropriate and what wasn't. You don't see that's not a sports announcer. You don't see sports announcers like that. Compare him to Tony Schiavone, and I generally like Tony Schiavone and David Crockett when they were doing WCW in the early days. I liked them fine, but they had nothing close to the credibility of Lance Russell to the everyday person walking the street in Memphis, Tennessee. I'll tell you this: if Jr. walked up to somebody on the streets of wherever with Bill Watts and told them, you probably ought to go home. All the banks are going to close and there's a big issue coming. They'd just look at him like he was crazy. If Lance Russell told you you needed to go home because the city of Memphis was about to lock down, you couldn't find anybody on the streets. I guarantee you.
Guarantee you, and that's a fantastic, brilliant take. You're right. You're exactly right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put you over when you're not saying something stupid, and you said something brilliant right then.
Well, thank you. Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't express it the way I wanted to, but that's kind of what I was trying to get out. So thank you. And that, it's a fine line, but it's true. It's true.
No doubt about it. As Thomas Leonard says, Lance and Dave were the best, and Bo says, I know James Spann from the Rick and Bubba show, and certainly Adam makes a great point that the people in Memphis trusted Dave due to his credibility as the weatherman and calm the storm, because actually Dave did wrestling before he did the weather. But once even though the wrestling show got great numbers, Dave's credibility, he was a sidekick to Lance. Then he went from Lance Russell's sidekick, and he did a great job to that. He went to the most trusted man in Memphis, and they've never had the ratings of TV5. TV5 hasn't been successful in their ratings or income or anything else. Dave Brown was the king of TV5. Would you agree with that, Pat?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, in every city there's a guy that is that guy. And I did not know that Jay Spann was on Rick and Bubba. Oh, I knew he'd been on once or twice, but that's funny, Bo. Rick and Bubba's studio before they moved was about 3 blocks from my house. I coached football against Rick.
Frank Seaton says, I liked it when if the weather was bad during the TV show or there was bad weather like snow or ice, tornadoes, etc., Lance would ask Dave about what was going to happen. So in the middle of the wrestling program, Dave Brown went from the sidekick right on the wrestling broadcast. We could get and certainly I'm going to add to my life, there's no local TV shows anymore with mass audiences.
Well,
No
that's true.
local TV shows with mass audiences at all. And I think that's a part that we had that certainly is not there. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and to kind of, I think what Ahmad posted here, it kind of gives us all an indication of what Dave Brown meant to Memphis when Ahmad was in junior high school. He invited Dave to come and speak, and he came. And Ahmad wanted to be a meteorologist. So I mean, he was part of the fabric of Memphis for 40 years, and so was Lance. And you don't get that you just don't get that with regular sports announcers anywhere else in the country.
City by the Bay's in the house. He's saying, "What's up, Pat?"
Hey, City.
Members of Team Hales, we have a great show, and this is not over by any stretch of the imagination, as we will go back to video courtesy of Jerry Lawler's Dinner with the King podcast. Our microphones will be hot, and we need to answer anybody from Team Hales that makes comments. We'll try to not get behind on that. We did a good job before, as we picked a random stopping place, and we're going to just start where we stopped. So here we go with Talking Memphis Wrestling. Pat Trammell, and I'm Randy Hales. Dinner with the King
I have no doubts that Tojo Yamamoto could kill me if he wants to, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm not going to let him treat me that way. And he said, I may only get one lick in with this hammer. He said, but Tojo, I promise you, I'll hit you right in the face with this. I mean, and people, when Lance got involved, when Lance, as sincere and believable as he was, when that happened, that was a huge, major deal.
Yeah. Did he, a question, I put a tweet out, people want to ask questions or share stories about Lance Russell. Because of that aspect, you wanted to keep, kind of separate and make it a big deal when it did happen. Did Lance want to get involved here and there? Did he enjoy getting involved? And this is a question from Twitter. Did he enjoy getting involved, physically, or did he shy away from that at all?
No, Lance never shied away from it, and I think he did enjoy getting involved. A couple of times we had him. Well, one of the times I can remember, a couple of times he went so far as to be a special referee in a match. One time in a match between me and the Mongolian Stomper, who was this big, mean, bald-headed guy that had been built up as a world beater. And I mean, he was really a scary guy. And Lance wound up being the special referee. And when the match was over, I can't remember all the details of it, but for one reason or other, the Mongolian Stomper was really irate. And he came in the back and was slamming doors and throwing things and screaming and cussing and ranting and raving. And I was in the same little dressing room with Lance, and Lance's eyes got real big, and he said, "What's he mad at?" And I listened out the door, and I said, "Ooh, Lance, I think he's mad at you." And Lance said, "Lock the door, lock the door." So I think that was the last time that he wanted to referee a match. But yeah, he did. But he was always, he would always be cautious and remind us of the fact that we didn't want to do anything that would take credibility away from Lance, because he and Dave were the magic combination that I think had helped to make the fans in Memphis, and I can honestly say this, I believe the fans in Memphis believed in our wrestling more so than any other wrestling company around the country, and I credit Lance and Dave for that.
There's another clip of when this is back in 1984, and it is when Eddie Gilbert attacked Tommy Rich, and then you see Lance on the screen, going to throw it to a next segment, and then you see the betrayal happen off screen. And Lance's face is just, he's just kind of feeling that pain of Rich. He just, and I think this is missing from, wrestling today is, being able to tell a story without saying many words. And I know Lance, his voice is, carries on forever, but just his facial expressions on the show when certain things happen, just put over what was happening, in front of the viewer and also in front of him.
Well, you're right. That doesn't happen anymore. And I think the reason for that is because there aren't any Lance Russells around anymore. Yeah. Lance could sell a move or sell something that was going on merely with a facial expression. In one case in point, people can go, or you may even have the clip, but people can go on YouTube and look it up. Joe LeDuc. I was wrestling Joe LeDuc, and Joe LeDuc came out to do an interview with Lance, and all Lance did was stand there and hold the microphone. But Lance was in the shot the whole time, and Lance's facial expressions and his hand movements, without saying a word, helped make that interview that Joe LeDuc did so powerful. Joe LeDuc, it was the infamous, "I'm going to take an oath." He couldn't say oath. He said, "I'm going to take an oath. People think I'm crazy. I'm not going to show you I'm not so crazy.
I'm going to take an oath. You know what that is? Well, I'm going to tell you what it is. In the lumber camp in Canada, when you do something very important, when you want to do something very important, you take an oath. And you make a scar on your body somewhere to remind you, in case you don't do it, and to remind you not to look at yourself in the mirror. Just never. Well, I'm going to do it now, boy. I'm going to show you, punk. This is an axe, and this is an arm. I'm going to show you, punk. I'm going to cut my arm. And if I don't do what I told you Monday night, I'll never be able to look at myself in the mirror as long as I live. But I'm going to do it. Now, Jerry Lawler, you hear this. Jerry Lawler, you hear this. Right now, Jerry Lawler, I'm going to mess up your face. And that's the last match I lost with you, Jerry Lawler. Look like that. All right. You see it right here. Look at it, boy.
And so he takes his arm, and he's got this big lumberjack axe. And he explained that, up in the lumber camps of Canada, if you wanted to remind yourself that something very important you had to do, it was almost like most people would tie a string around their finger. Well, he said in Canada, in the lumberjacks, you would take an oath that you would put a scar on your body. And that scar on your body, when you looked at it every day, would remind you of what it was that the oath that you took or what you wanted to do. So Joe was taking an oath that he was going to destroy me the next time he got within arm's reach of me. And he took that axe and he started sawing on his forearm, on the inside of his forearm with that axe. And he said, "I'm going to cut my arm." And Lance's face is just like Lance is cringing, and because, you could see Lance is looking down at Joe's arm. And Lance did such an amazing job without saying a word on that promo that's just the kind of things that Lance was capable of doing. He was just that genuine, and he was just that, it was a natural is what it was, because I want to say it was a talent, but I don't know if that's the right word. I think it was just Lance being Lance. He was just naturally that great at what he did.
When we talked about the Undertaker in Memphis, I forget which episode that is, but I played you a clip, and when the Undertaker is the Master of Pain did his first promo, and it's not the best promo, but you hear Lance go, and you just, it's just those little things.
Because the Undertaker or Mark had just told people that he was had been in prison for killing a couple of guys in a parking lot somewhere, and now he's out on parole, and so that was his story of where he had been, why anybody hadn't heard of him before now, and so right when the Undertaker or Mark or Master of Pain explained his background, Lance was a little skeptical. It was like perfect, because hey, today if somebody comes on Monday Night Raw and says, "Hey, I just got out of prison. I've been in federal prison down in Atlanta. A couple of guys are pushing up daisies right now." Hey, immediately people could go on YouTube or they could Google or whatever, and they could find out that's a BS story, right?
Right.
And And even if you didn't take the time to do that, if somebody came on now and said that on Raw, everybody would say, yeah, that's BS, but whatever. But Lance, back in the day, with his credibility, like you said, that little that was just enough of Lance casting his form of doubt on that story, but letting the story go. It's like, well, I'm going to take that story with a grain of salt, and maybe you people should too. But he didn't doubt the guy, and he didn't doubt the story, so it made it credible, and that was just the way Lance was.
Hey, Adam,
there's been
let's come out
plenty
of the video
of
right
articles
now.
written in the
We'll
past
get back
24
to it
hours,
later.
a lot of editorials on Lance
15
Russell.
minutes
There's a
after
great Deadspin article
on today's edition
from
of
David Bickenspan,
Talking
who
Memphis
wrote
Wrestling.
about Lance Russell and calling him the greatest pro wrestling.
There you go, as we are back live with Pat Trammell and Randy Hales and Shane Russell, who I tried to call earlier in the middle of the show and also send him a email. Shane had a comment, Pat, if you would read that comment.
Well, Shane says his dad never shied away from being involved, but he knew his place and always wanted to focus to be on the talent, the wrestlers in the ring. And I think that is absolutely important. But he did that with such a style and grace that you don't see now. And you didn't look, frankly, you didn't see then.
No, it was very, very unusual because what we had that nobody other had, and it was on my list, folks, what we had was Lance Russell, and nobody else did. And I'm just saying this to tell you there was nobody like Lance Russell. There's no doubt. Shane, real quick, I sent you a link to join the show because we had somebody that made a comment earlier that I completely disagreed with, and I wanted to ask you. So if you would check your email, and if you would join us on this show, we will go right away and ask that question to you because I really want. Certainly, we go to the horse's mouth, the son of Lance, Shane Russell, and we want to ask you that question. So, Shane Russell, if you're still watching this, go to your email, click on the link to join this show, and we will get you right back live as live can be on this show, Talking Memphis Wrestling, and we will discuss that part that this fan remembered about your dad's career that I certainly don't remember. So, Shane, if you could go to your email, click on that, and we would love to discuss that. So, what do you want to talk about, Pat?
Well, Shane asked if you sent it to srussell1558 at Gmail.
I don't know. I sent it where I normally did. Pat, if you'll talk, I'll look.
All right. All right. It was interesting to me, and I was thinking about this. Randy said you had Lance not, but we also had Lance over decades. And, he became a trusted member of everybody's family. And, when you had the heels being the worst to the baby faces, you had Lance to set, to be again that moral compass, which other wrestlers really weren't that. I mean, other wrestling commentators really weren't that. I got a little bit of that out of Gordon Soley from time to time. You got a little bit of that from Charlie Platt, who, in my opinion, is probably the most underrated wrestling announcer out there. He was in the Dothan area. Um, but there's an awful lot of value over time to having somebody trusted that you see every single Saturday morning, and be kind of I guess the North Star in the face of all the commotion and controversy. And I think that's what Lance was for us, and Dave too. And I think that was, over the years, Michael was on with Lance some, and he certainly did a great job. And Randy was on with Lance some, and he certainly did a great job. But that Lance and Dave team was just something people in Memphis call it lightning in a bottle, and I wish I had lived it then, but I'm thankful to be able to pick it up now. And if an old guy like me who never saw a live Memphis wrestling show in his life, uh, uh, it means that much to me. It must be something pretty good, pretty good.
I'll be back with you in about 1 minute, Pat. So
PJ, you're absolutely right. He was, Lance was the one who said stop, and the wrestlers would stop. No question about that. I liked Lance with heel Tojo about as much as anything he ever did. I just thought that was great. And I think somebody was talking about Lawler was talking about Lance having the hammer after Tojo. So Randy's going to leave us. Randy's putting a sweater on.
No, somebody mentioned it.
He's going under the hood.
Somebody mentioned it on.
There we go. There we go. There we go. My oldest spawn's most prized possession right there is Lance Russell's shirt.
And there's the great picture that Adam found. That's absolutely fantastic with Lance in with the hammer about to attack him some. He's about to attack him some Tojo Yamamoto. This is to Shane Russell. Shane, I still had your .food email. I didn't have that current one, but I have sent the link to your Gmail address at srussell 1558 at gmail.com. So check that out again. Thomas Lemon says he wants one, and they're out of print, and Shane is not offering that right now, and I respect his decision for that. Mike says, holy smokes, that's awesome. BC Collins says, now come on, Bill, you better watch what you say out here. A lot of comments from people here on Team Hales. So Shane, if you would respond, if you got my current email, and we would love to hear from you. And there he is right here.
Hello again, everybody.
There he, hey.
Do it again. Pat talked over you. Do it again.
Hello again, everybody. Shane Russell, Randy Hales, and Pat Trammell. Right along for another big night of talking Memphis wrestling.
Frank, there you go.
You can carry it on, man.
Randy, I have to apologize to you. I'm a little under the weather. I've been battling a cold, and it developed into some sinus issues. So I apologize if I sound a little funny. And then, as you know, I retired a couple of weeks ago, so that old email does not work anymore.
We won't keep you long because we don't want you any sicker. I don't remember who it was that made the post. It was a long time ago. And Adam, if you could look back and see if you can find the gentleman that made the comment. And Lee, I'm a pretty good historian about Memphis wrestling. This fan says that he couldn't believe the time Lance Russell went heel on Memphis TV. Did that ever happen? Because I damn sure don't remember it.
Boy, if he did, I wasn't born yet, so I don't think it's happened. I can't even imagine that Dad would ever go heel at all on a Memphis wrestling show.
Now, me and you probably didn't see the shows. I was two in '63. We didn't see those, but you probably started watching in the mid to late '60s on Channel 13. Would you? And here is what Brian Thompson Lynch says. I remember Lance turning heel. That didn't go over too well because the fans loved him too much. I just think, Brian, you're mistaken. I really do, because again, Shane don't remember that. Pat don't remember it. I don't remember it. Randy West, I'm sure, don't remember it. Bo James don't remember it. Frank Seaton don't remember it. People that grew up like I did with Memphis Wrestling.
The only thing I could think of maybe he's thinking about is the Christmas special where Dad and Jerry exchanged places, and Dad got to get on Jerry as Lance Russell, if you remember that.
Oh, certainly. That's one of the classic memories. That would be great, but it's easy. Well, not easy for me, but easy for Adam to find pictures. That clip of that video with them switching rows, it would be great if we could find that, but certainly that's something that's not easy to find for sure. But there was a Christmas show where there was a dream sequence, and Lawler had his dream, and Lance had his dream, and his uh, basically was shooting a promo on Lawler. It was classic, classic, classic. How do you think you were at the same? And Shane Odom says, I watched Memphis Wrestling the other day. I saw where Billy Travis got arrested on live TV. I think Michael St. John was on. Yeah, we showed that on this TV several times as we go back to Lance, and we can have Michael when he returns to the show in a week or two. We can have him go ahead and discuss that as well. Now, what do you think your mother would have said about her husband and the father of her kids if he switched heel in Memphis, Tennessee? What would Miss Audrey think about the thing?
I know her very well, and it would not go over well at all at home. If he tried it, he would have come back the next week and said, "Okay, folks, I was just kidding around, and let's get back to it." So no way.
Shane, how did your dad did he get approached a lot just out in public about wrestling?
That's a
and
great
how did he
question.
handle that?
Yeah, we would. Dad, Mom, they like to eat out a lot. As a kid, I can remember going out to eat, and it's funny. In those early days, the late '60s, early '70s, there wasn't much. There wasn't a whole lot of people that came up and said anything. There was a few people that recognized it, but they didn't go any further. But boy, as the years went on, late '70s, early '80s, then it got to be, where there were a lot of people that came up and recognized him and said, "Hey, I'd like an autograph," and stuff like that. But and then, of course, when he retired and we went back, started doing the Comic Cons and everything, it just exploded. Then wrestling just was at a whole nother stratosphere, because of everything going on.
Did he enjoy those Comic Cons?
He was absolutely thrilled, Pat. And I've told that story so many times about the first one he did, but he even to the day he died, he still could not believe that people remembered him and could recognize him and want to talk to him and everything. He thought, oh, it's history. Nobody will remember me, stuff like that. And he was just amazed.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Where's Michael tonight?
Michael's in Louisville.
Oh, okay.
He's Randy, when is the Derby?
The first weekend of May, so I don't know what kind of event he has, but he has some kind of event. He let me know Sunday that he couldn't do this.
Yeah, show. He's got some kind of event up there. Michael goes to the Derby every year. Every year.
Yeah. Hey, did I hear you guys talk? There was some conversation about Lance Russell T-shirts.
Well,
One
there's
of our
somebody.
fans did because I'm wearing one.
Oh,
somebody that what you and Rusty put up at the funeral with his sayings on it.
Oh yeah.
Randy or Adam put that up, and I read them, and somebody said we need a T-shirt with all that on it.
What in the Sam Hill are you guys talking about?
We'll have you read those sayings right now as Adam done. We'll put up that. So you
got to
go
take
ahead. I know you're
these
sick and don't
glasses
have a
off,
full voice, but go ahead.
These are some good ones. Oh, come on, Hart, you son of a gun. By golly, we got a good one here. Eddie, can we get some help out here? How many times did we hear that?
A lot.
And then you wait a minute. I'm getting sick and tired of you coming out here every week. I have a feeling that was directed towards Lawler. Of course, yellow again, everybody, and get these guys out of here, will you? We're going to take a break. Davey, whoa, boy, what in the Sam Hill? I can't tell you how many times growing up as a kid I heard, Shane, what in the Sam Hill do you think you were doing then? These are great sayings. My brother did a great job of coming up with all those. And I mean, believe it or not, a lot of that stuff too. I mean, just like I said to Sam Hill, he would use at home. I mean, it was crazy, some of the stuff he'd do.
Greatest wrestling announcer. I really appreciate you hopping on. We're going to go back, and I wanted to ask you a question. We started this last week. We're going to the 2019 Dinner with the King podcast that Glenn and Lawler put together. We showed some last week, and throughout the thread, throughout the show, we're listening to that. I'm sure you've heard that podcast, correct?
I have heard the podcast, yes.
It's just fantastic. And we're going to go back with that. You need to go rest your voice, or do you want to stick with it?
No, I'm good. I'm good for now.
Your voice is holding up. As Thomas says, love you, Lance. And we certainly did. Everyone here does, as we will return to this video courtesy of Jerry Lawler's Dinner with the King podcast with Pat Trammell. I'm Randy Hills, and Shane Russell, and the way he opens up every appearance he does on the Randy Hills show is what?
Yellow again, everybody. Shane Russell, Randy Hills, Pat Trammell, right along ringside for another big night of talking Memphis wrestling.
I want you to pitch to this video we're going to see. Pitch to the
video. Let's see. Well, folks, we're gonna share a video from Jerry Lawler's Dinner with the King, and this is talking about Lance Russell. Take it away, Randy.
Announcer of all time, and even WWE.com wrote a nice little write-up about Lance Russell on the website. A couple questions when it comes to Lance Russell and WWE, WWF. Was there ever a time that WWE, WWF fans could have heard Lance Russell on their programs? Was there ever a time that Vince wanted Lance Russell, or did you try to vouch for Lance when you went to WWF at all?
Well, no, because at that time Lance was already doing the stuff with WCW. Okay. So when I first went up there, and so I didn't think Lance had any desire to be there, and then. One of the clips, as you're talking about the last couple of days, been looking back on things. Lauren pulled up a clip that my memory, is not that great, as you well know, but I'd forgotten. But not too long ago, I had the privilege of bringing Lance out during I don't know if it was SmackDown or Monday Night Raw that we had live in Memphis at the FedEx Forum, and I got to bring Lance out during the show and introduce him to everybody there, and he got to come up through the gorilla position and meet and have his picture made with Vince McMahon, and that was one of the highlights of Lance's life, and it was a great thrill for all the fans there to get to see. It was the first time a lot of them had seen Lance in years, in person, and so that was a great thrill. And I've
Shane,
had
were
tons
you
of
with your
people
dad that night at FedEx
ask
Forum?
me,
Yes, I was
what do you
there,
think
and he
about Lance being in the
absolutely
Hall of Fame? And
loved it.
I think it's certainly deserving. I mean, even though he didn't ever work for the WWE, hey, WWE is putting a lot of people in the Hall of Fame that that didn't necessarily work for them, which I think is a great thing. It's even though it's called the WWE Hall of Fame, it is with where they're kind of opening their arms a little further. It's more of just a wrestling Hall of Fame now, and I think that's a great thing. And so I'm hoping that one of these days Lance will certainly be inducted as what some of the people said. I think he's at least in my eyes the greatest wrestling commentator ever.
Jerry, if that happens, you would have to be introducing yourself as a inductor for Lance Russell. I'm sure you would be the man inducting Lance Russell into the Hall of Fame. There's no other person I can think of that would be for the right man for that job.
Well, that would be a great honor. It's similar honor. Last year, Lance asked me if I would come to Las Vegas, and the Cauliflower Alley Club inducted Lance into their Hall of Fame. Which if a lot of people aren't familiar with what the Cauliflower Alley Club is, but it's a group of former wrestlers and announcers and wrestling people that they have a big meeting every year in Las Vegas, and they have a Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and I watched the clip of that of me introducing Lance, and it was so great because so many famous commentators were there at the time. JBL, who was the voice of Monday Night Raw then at the time, Mean Gene Okerlund was there, Bobby the Brain Heenan was there, good old JR was there, and then I got to introduce Lance, who was being inducted into the Announcers Hall of Fame there last year, and it was so great. Lance got up on stage and said, "Yellow, everybody, thank you," and all of a sudden he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out this big long piece of paper and he starts looking at it and he said, "Oh, no, don't worry, that's not my speech, that's just a list of the pills I have to take today." so he had a great still
now let's
always
come
had
out
a
of
great
that
sense
right
of humor.
now,
He was
Adam,
just
because I want to get the
just an
person
awesome
that fed the line to Lance Russell. So go ahead and explain about the Cauliflower Alley Club and that line that Lance actually, remember, he had a rider.
He did have a right. He had three of them. Dad took my brother and my sister, who's passed away, and myself. We all went out there as a family, which was spectacular. And and people, you have to remember that Dad at that time was, God, what was he, 90, 89 or 90? I can't remember. And his memory was slipping, and he was having trouble to remember things. So the day of the speech, we all got him in the hotel room, and we worked on the speech with him. Worked on him. Having to come up with stuff, and I actually was the one. I don't. It sounds bad, but I did come up with that line about. I said, "Dad, what would be really funny is if you." Because the cauliflower is known for having really long speeches, and they try to curtail it. So I said, what would really be funny is if you pulled out just all this paper, like you were going to give the speech, this long speech, and just say, "Oh, no, this is the list of all the pills I'm supposed to take." And it got the biggest laugh of the night. I mean, here's this 90-year-old guy up there cutting jokes, and I tell you, Randy, I've told the story a million times. Dad, as insecure as he was, and he knew he was, missing, later in life, but you put a mic in his hand, and it's just almost like he never missed a beat. He pulled that whole. He kept it to below 15 minutes, and he was just spot on. Hit everything he could, and he was out of there, and he was great.
That is fantastic. Before we go back to Dinner with the King podcast, do you have, before we go with more video, Pat, do you have any more follow-ups to Shane?
Well, I apologize. I've been accused of stealing the salt and pepper in my house, but anyway, No, PJ has something. It says there's a clip of Lance's speech on YouTube. That'd be
I was
interesting
just
to
going
look
to
at.
mention that. Thank you, PJ. If you've never seen it, you need to look it up. It's funny she brought that up. I think it was last or yesterday sometime. I was just going through and looking at some of the old videos. That one popped up. Of course, it wasn't old, but another one that I found, Randy. I don't know if you've ever shown or not. There's actually two that I think your fans might be interested in. Is Dad pitching Baxter suits, an old Baxter suit commercial.
I would love to see. I
think
saw it
it's
live, I'm sure, but I would love to see the video.
I think it's called Lance Russell pimping Baxter suits. If Adam can look that up, that's pretty cool. And then the other one, I wish Michael was here. But there's a video of when they were doing a I can't remember what they called it, where Billy Travis was going to wrestle somebody, and they picked somebody out of the stands to come down and pick an envelope and see who he was going to wrestle. Well, it just so happened to be Carly, my daughter, who at the time was probably, I don't know, I'm going to guess around 11 or 12. And Sarah and I are in the stands, Randy. This is at Channel 5. And Michael St. John is doing it with my daughter there, which, and the video is really horrible. It's got a lot of stuff in it, but it's pretty cool to go back and look at.
Adam's asking if you remember the date.
Oh, geez, no, I couldn't tell you. You mean the one with my daughter and Michael on it?
Yes.
Yeah, I have to. I always put in like Lance Russell, Billy Travis, just something of that nature, and you'll typically find it.
Hey, Carly is watching.
Carly just popped on, yeah.
Carly's watching the show
good.
right now.
What's so funny about that video is that Carly again was only, but she says it was traumatizing. Billy Travis did yell at her. I will say that, but she was nervous, and then that Michael told her to open the envelope up to see who Billy was wrestling. Well, Carly, I kid her all the time. She hadn't learned how to open up an envelope yet. Michael had to go, okay, just rip it open. Just rip it open. So it's pretty good stuff.
Hey, I would think, Adam, that would have to be, and I don't know how old she would have been how old would she have been in 97? Because I don't think they went together in 89, but they, Lance was gone during that period in WCW, but in 97, as she's saying, they put too much tape on that, so she wasn't happy with that at all. So I would think that would be, Adam says he knows everything in 97, so he doesn't remember ever seeing that. So if you ever can find it, Shane, just go ahead and email me the link.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Randy, you may remember it was called like the Wheel of something.
We did the Wheel of Torture back then, but I don't think Billy Travis was a part of that. When was Carly born?
85. So again, she was probably around 11 or 12. Carly, I don't know if you're still on or not. If you remember how old you were, I don't know, but somewhere in that range. Anyway, it would be cool to have Michael see it too. You might want to do it when he comes back. So it's pretty interesting.
All right. And Adam says that it was in 97 for sure. And we have all the 97 shows, but we don't have a breakdown album. So we would have a month of the year or anything like that. And certainly, we'll check on that, and we have about 20 minutes left on the program, and we're going to return to the podcast, and we're going to go to Dinner with the King. It's titled Thank you, Lance. So thank you, Lance.
Guy. But yeah, that was a great honor to get to introduce and induct Lance into that Hall of Fame. And if it happens at the WWE Hall of Fame, I would be so honored to get to induct Lance.
He was very well, watching all these clips on YouTube, he was very well versed when it comes to one-liners, just as you are, Jerry. But being able to hold his own when he was, sparring verbally with, other wrestlers, managers, and one person that comes to mind is Jim Cornette, a very, very young Jim Cornette, as the mom, the rich mom, him being the guy coming out and whining a lot, and Lance being able to drop some classic one-liners, and also yourself when you were feuding with Jim Cornette, and to tell you, Jerry, Jim Cornette is going to be on the podcast in 2 weeks. So
with us,
with us, really? Yeah, he's going to come on.
Oh my gosh, awesome!
So Jim is going to be on part of the podcast in a couple weeks. But yeah, just being able to, Jim got his start, and Lance, carried some of the first interviews. Raven also, a notable, guy during the Attitude Era for WCW and WWF. But a ton of guys, and people can watch one clip, Jerry, of Lance Russell. I know this is a hard question, but
I know where you're going, and I don't know.
There's a ton. But, I mean, if there was one definitive Lance Russell moment that people can get properly introduced to Lance Russell, which clip or segment would it be in your eyes?
Oh, man.
I'll tell you one clip that maybe won't define – it won't define Lance Russell's career, but it made me laugh that I discovered the past 24 hours. And I'll let you think about my question, but I'll explain to people, and I'll play the clip here. Is when it was a Christmas special, and Lance had one wish.
Oh yeah, of course.
It reversed roles, and here is you, Jerry Lawler, with the banana nose and the glasses, and I never see Jerry Lawler with a tie, and this is one of the few instances that you had a tie on. Being Lance Russell, then you had Lance Russell with the Army helmet on.
I do, in fact, have one wish, and if I could have one wish that would come true, I know exactly.
Thank you very much there, Davey. We're going to be back in just a little bit with some more.
All right,
really
Banana Nose, hold it up here now. I got something I want to say to you.
Wait a minute,
Put that
Lawler.
microphone over here. Now, wait a minute. Don't give me any of that stuff, Banana Nose. I want that microphone over here because I got something to say.
Well, wait a minute,
all
Lawler.
you people have been... Now, listen. I have listened to you tell these lies about me and all of these things, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Well, that was what you wanted to do.
Come out of that.
Well, it's finally happened.
Still do, yeah.
Right now, and we got Pat Trammell back. Pat, that was a great deal with Lance being Jerry Lawler, and just a great interview. We do have the clip. My award-winning producer that nobody's given any of us any awards, but he can find something, and Pat has something to say.
I'm sure Carly's very excited to have part of her puberty relived here on for all the world to see.
Now, Bo James was asking, what clip are you looking for? I'm sorry, he was on the telephone. Well, Adam Dunn, who I paid the big bucks. I let him sleep on my couch 2 or 3 times a year. But we have that video that features Carly Russell Campbell, the daughter of Shane, the granddaughter of the great Lance Russell. And I'll let you pitch the video.
And Sarah and they'll take a brief shot of us sitting in the stands. I apologize for the clip because it's really not real clear, but here we go. Cue it up, Adam.
What was said, Lance, Michael? I gotta confess, when we went off the air, they were yelling at me in my earpiece from the control room that we were off the air, and I didn't even hear what was said because I was trying to find out what the problem was, and as a result, I missed the whole thing, and the fans...
So you don't have the answer.
Everybody missed the
wait. I know. All right. Hey, it's time to find out who the challenger for where the USWA heavyweight title is going to be.
And Lance, I've got a young lady out of the audience here. Can we bring her over right now? Let's see. I think I'm caught up here.
Coincidentally, wait a minute. Let me get this.
There we go.
Okay.
I've got this young lady. If we can get her to come over
Carly's
here.
turning
And
3
what's
shades
your
of
name,
red
young
right
lady?
now.
Carly.
Carly, and where are you from?
Florida.
Do you know this man sitting behind the desk there?
Yes, sir.
Who is that man?
He's my grandfather.
Yeah, this is one of my granddaughters here. And
now, wait a minute. Let's get.
there's my
Uh-oh.
son and two.
Oh, watching
what
that
would be
stash.
camera left is the.
There's Sarah.
There's Sarah, my youngest daughter.
Okay, hey, come on. Hey,
Oh,
come on.
I think it's Billy Travis yelling at her.
Nope,
I
nope,
don't
nope.
care who it is.
You get to pick the challenger for Billy Travis. Let him rant and rave, but you get to pick the challenger. Pick an envelope there. All right, there's the envelope. Open it up for us. And here's the big announcement. This is the challenger for Billy Travis for the USWA
Come on, Carly, get that envelope
right now,
open.
Lance.
Yeah,
let's just rip it open.
Carly, go ahead and rip that.
Yeah, there you go. And here we go. Carly, let's open it up. And let's show it. Ah, here it is. It's the Spellbinder. Billy Travis takes on the Spellbinder for the USWA Championship right now in the ring. Carly, thanks for joining us. Sorry about Billy Travis. Let's go to the ring.
Okay, Tony Friedman.
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. We're ready to
This
go.
was from July the 12th, 1997. July the 12th, Bo James, 1997. Just a great, great video. This is Talking Memphis Wrestling. I'm Randy Hills. We got co-host Pat Tremble in the house and special guest star, a last-minute gimmick. Hey, you changed emails on me, and I didn't think of that. I just sent it to the Dot Food because when I called you the other day, you still have, hey, this is Shane Russell with Dot Food. You need to change your dadgum message.
It's been changed now.
Okay.
Hey, one thing I do want to say, somebody they asked the question about what that guy who was, I can't think who was on the podcast with Lawler about what video or what clip really personifies Dad or whatever he was asking about. You know, my personal opinion, I always think that if you listen to and watch the Tupelo concession stand brawl, I just think that's one of Dad's best work. You know, there's a spot in there, Randy, and you'll remember it when it goes black. He says, "Hey, we're signing off," and then it goes black, and then you can hear Dad say, "Hey, Michael." That's what I'm thinking of, Michael, right?
I think it was Randy West.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Randy. It was Mike
Shields.
He says, "Hey, Mike," he says, "something's going on big. You know, let's get the mic, go down and check it out." And this was in black. I mean, I just think Dad, the way he came up with things to really get the audience involved and all that, I think it just was real. That really just set it off.
One thing that Gary says, and I didn't put that up there, but Gary says Mr. Russell was very nice seeing him in I think it was Pikeville, Kentucky, for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Do you remember when Lance and your mom went up to work for Jim Cornette in the probably early 90s?
Yeah, I don't, Randy. You know, I had I was raising 2 small kids at the time, and trying to start the family, and I don't have much of a memory of that.
Yeah, Jim Cornette has talked about it on his podcast. And another thing about podcasts is just recently, within the last few weeks, I found on YouTube, Jim Cornette did a great podcast. It was 2 or 3 different parts, and it was long stuff where nobody in wrestling is better at history than Cornette, and Cornette did his tribute to Lance on his podcast. Have you ever seen that? Because it's great.
I have seen that, and thank you, Jimmy Cornette. He saved the day over in Charlotte when Dad went over there again to do. They wanted him to do a question and answer And Dad he just wasn't up for that. He just, his mind and everything was, was slowly going. Jimmy stepped in and did the whole thing with Dad, and it just turned out perfectly. And Cornette just was great about it.
That's just fantastic. I think we'll end up by doing one last clip. Are you guys for that? You, Shane?
I'm here.
One last. How about you, Pat?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Pat, we'll let you introduce it.
I don't know what we're going to.
Okay. We're going through the same thing we've been showing the whole show.
We're going to Dinner with the King from Lance Russell.
You did good.
That's right.
That was
I didn't have to put those tights on for this, though.
Yeah, you look pretty neat in those tights. That was back when I had Lawler's Army, so you had on the helmet there and the tights, and you should have sued those legs for non-support, Lance, I'll tell you.
Those are your trunks, I assume.
Yeah, and that was actually Lance's suit too. I mean, we just sort of came up with that idea on the spur of the moment, and so we really exchanged clothes. And as you can see, the suit is like so small for me, and then the tights with my, the strap is on Lance. And when what you're talking about was when people ask me one of my fondest memories of Lance and things that we did, that was always at the top of the list, where Lance and I switched roles, so to speak, and he was there berating me, and I'm trying to conduct an interview, and I had a big plastic nose on, and that nickname that I gave Lance did have a prominent proboscis, in other words, a big nose, and so and when I think back on it, I think that I may have been one of the first guys, and I don't even know why or what started it, but I think that I may have been one of the first guys in wrestling, in Memphis wrestling at least, that zeroed in on Lance and made him part of my interview. I think before that, when Lance had been just basically, when he interviewed guys like Don and Al Green and a lot of the different old school wrestlers, they looked at the announcers just the guy that was going to be there to introduce them and hold the microphone for them while they talked. And they may tell them to shut up or something like that. But I think I was the first guy to come along and really zero in on Lance and start, throwing out some one-liners and insults to Lance. And I think, that was one of the big things that got me over, because Lance was so loved and so well liked by all the fans. And then for this young guy to come along and start insulting Lance, that was just something they hadn't seen before, and it just really ticked everybody off. I mean, Lance used to do commercials for a company called Baxter Suits, and every week he wore a Baxter, beautiful, nice Baxter suit on the show, and a couple of times during the show he'd do commercials for him.
Let's come out of that real quick, and our award-winning producer found that clip of Lance pipping that Baxter Suits. And for everybody that don't know what the hell we're talking about, Lance did commercials for a suit store, Baxter's, and Lance did these commercials, and Lawler would bring that up in the interview and talk about it. A classic interview we played a couple of weeks ago, and where Lance wasn't at TV, and Lawler came out and said, Davey, said Lance Russell's not here today. His Baxter suit passed away, one of the famous lines. And the commercial that Shane was talking about, Adam found, and we're going to pitch to that right now on Talking Memphis Wrestling.
You can stop it quick.
You actually have got one.
Yeah, here we go.
Son of a gun.
Right now, I want to get in a good word for all of the men out there watching from our good friends at Baxter's, where at all three stores you can save in a final clearance on suits and sport coats. Every suit, every sport coat must be sold. That includes suits that should sell for at least $95, now $15 to $55.
Whoa.
Sport coats that should sell for at least $65, now $12.50 to $37.50.
Yeah,
and
look at that. Can you believe that?
Free. Baxter's on Park Avenue stays open every Friday night until 8 o'clock.
It's nice.
Wow. Wow.
I'd like to find some of that cheap now.
Hey, I would get it. So, what made this show today was Shane Russell coming in and answer the questions that I had, and Adam finding all all the stuff. Shane, thanks a lot, man. Happy retirement. You have no excuse not to be a regular on this show, to come back every few weeks.
That's
because
right.
we are, as you know, nobody talks Lance Russell more than this show does, and certainly Jim Cornette does a great job too. But thank you so much, and happy retirement.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Randy and Pat. Hey, just one last thing I want to mention, and I hope it's okay to talk about this, Randy. But in May, in Evansville, Indiana, you know, they're doing that celebration for Jerry Lawler. Have you talked about that any, Randy?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go.
I'm planning on going up there. I just think it's going to be a great time and get a chance to see everybody. So if anybody's going up there, please reach out to me and say hello. And I'd love to see you and talk to you and talk some more Lance Russell stuff.
See you at the Wisteria.
Hey, Pat, I'm gonna be coming through Birmingham. So last time I tried to come through, you stood me up, man. But
well, give me a call. You're on me.
All right, guys. You guys have fun. Thank you so much, Randy, for having me on. Can't thank you enough.
Good to see you
so much. Great.
Take
Shane Russell in the house.
Thank Carly, too.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I didn't mean for you to talk over me.
I didn't mean for you to talk under me. All right.
Final words.
Great show, as always.
I think it's our best show ever. What does Team Hell say? Mike says, been a great show as always. What did Team Hells think? We didn't get all the way through. Do you think we should save this and watch the conclusion of it next week, or have we got too much out of it so far?
There are so many great things on here that we didn't get to. Yeah, I think we should keep plowing along myself. But it was a good show. Thank you for you and Adam for improvising as always. It was fun to have Shane on and fun to see Carly on, and been a great show, and good to see all our pals today. Thank you,
Adam
Randy.
loves live TV, so he is thrilled to death. Don't think he's stressed that he's having to dig and find and look. This is what Adam Dunn has passion about. What he has,
master.
He has love for. Sure. Everybody's saying, as PJ says, great show. And my buddy Randy West says, a great show tonight. And I appreciate that, Randy. And it's the luck of the draw. And me, I work hard on laying out the shows, but at the same time, I react to what comes up in the discussion. And so if something comes up in the discussion, first of all, we saw the one thing, I'm thinking, the comment from the person that says Lance was a heel. I'm thinking, I need to get Shane on this show today. And that led to Shane talking about the Carly thing, which I'd never seen before. So we showed that. Thanks to Adam. It's just one of those things. Do you see why still not only Adam is, but I am obsessed with this show, and thanks to you, this show looks better than it ever has, and it's worth it to be able to put on a show, and I appreciate that very much, Richard and Mike. I never bought this shirt, and it was a personal gift from Shane when he still had them left, and I wouldn't sell this for $5,000. I love some Lance Russell, no doubt. Pat, tremendous job you did today, and I appreciate it very much. Tremendous.
Well, thank you.
Adam did tremendous as well. And for the first time ever, Mr. Pat Trammell, the co-host of this show, is going to close us out and say goodbye to you. I'll do my part. I'm Randy Hells. I love Team Hells. I love and miss Michael St. John and Chris Ellis. Love me some Adam Dunn. Love me some Pat Trammell. And now Pat's going to close this show.
For our host, Randy Hales, for our producer, Adam Dunn, from Shane Russell, for Carly Russell, Talking Memphis Wrestling, Pat Trammell, it's your show, our great listeners. Goodbye, everybody.
Good word for all of the men out there watching from our good friends at Baxter's, where at all 3 stores you can save in a final clearance on suits and sport coats. Every suit, every sport coat must be sold. That is, includes suits that should sell for at least $95, now $15 to $55. Sport coats that should sell for at least $65, now $12.50 to $37.50.
Yeah,
and
look at
remember,
that. Can
all
you
the
believe
races
that?
are free. Baxter's on Park Avenue stays open every Friday night until 8 o'clock.
It's nice to be young again.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.